Welcome to On the Couch, a regular catch-up where we address some of the issues and problems facing the industry and hopefully come up with some solutions. Today, I'm joined by the Managing Director of the Remarkables Group, Natalie Giddings. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you, Darren.
Thanks for joining us on the couch.
No problem.
Look, you guys have built a great reputation around this area of influencer marketing, and I'm really interested in it because it doesn't matter what I look at, there's someone with an opinion about influencer marketing. So why is it the hot topic and all the rage at the moment?
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's definitely extremely topical at this point in time. My belief, and from what I've observed from the programs that we've been running, is the velocity at which some of these social influencers are growing their audiences. I think things like a YouTuber, which used to be a phenomenon that was very largely US-based. Some of our local social influencers have grown from sort of 50,000 subscribers just in the last 12 months to over 500,000 to 1 million.
Yeah.
And they're getting, they're really growing, I guess, their true influence, and that does create an opportunity.
So with so many options, because as you say, the number of influencers is growing rapidly, and they're so aligned to particular audiences or segments or interest or whatever. How does a marketer get started in doing that? Is it a toe in the water, or do you just have to jump in and immerse yourself in it?
It's traditionally quite a hard activity to manage, because if you're doing your research correctly, doing all of your due diligence and making sure that you're doing the analysis on whether this is the right influencer for you, and then onboarding them and immersing them in your brand correctly, and then implementing the campaign, end to end, it can actually be a lot of work. And campaigns for one message, it takes a true dedicated audience member to believe a once-off mention of a product, or maybe a twice-off mention of a product. But really, I suggest that you start small. So it might be just one influencer that you partner with, but you partner with for the longer term, just like you would your traditional ambassadors. I know your traditional ambassadors, you might have employed them into your creative and your content and then push that out. I guess the key difference, it's not too dissimilar, other than the influencer has the audience built in.
Right.
So, it's just a slightly different way of approaching.
Things that we have seen is that marketers making huge mistakes with influencers. What would you say is the most common mistake that marketers will often stumble into when they start working with influencers?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, and it can be quite terrifying for some marketers. I believe that it's really got to be that true onboarding of the influencer. So finding someone who is genuinely, a trusted authority in that space, yes, but making sure that they're someone who can truly endorses your brand, and it takes much longer to find that person. But then once you've got them locked in, get them in for the longer term. I would say a minimum contract should be 6 months. And that sounds like a huge commitment, but it's much better than sort of doing a spray and pray approach with maybe 10 or 15 influencers that won't hit the mark with your messaging.
So it is more along the lines of ambassadors, which are inclined to be longer term,
yeah,
than it is a media decision just based on numbers, because it sounds like you're recommending to avoid the mistakes of just being, hit and miss, to actually build with these relationships. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. 2017 was the year of, numerous sort of technology platforms sprung up.
Yep.
And so, their promise is that you can leverage 60 to 100 influencers with the time it takes to leverage one. But what often happens is you never ever get to that 60 or 100 count of influencers, because you don't have that close arm's length reach to be able to spend the time with them, and you spend and they spend the time with you, and really get to know your brand story, and then develop that story together.
Well, because this is what I'm concerned about, is that I read so often about influencers
Yeah.
that become demanding, snotty-nosed little bastards that are inclined. I just recently read about one in the UK that contacted a
Yes.
hotel in Ireland and said, "I want to stay for free because I've got so many Instagram followers." If you've got a choice of 100 influencers, how do you know that you're not going to get one of those?
I always like to tell, when I've got the opportunity, about how many briefs influencers that we work with on a daily basis turn down, and the amount of dollars. And we're talking, close to $500,000 for some of the talent that we represented in 2016, up until 2016.
So is that a demonstration of their integrity?
That's exactly what I'm pointing to. So There is that perception that they're all on the beach drinking a green smoothie in their bikini, and the reality is, one, there's a much greater variety of influencers than that. They're the ones that tend to get the headlines, and two, they're not all roving around waiting for their next paycheck. They're actually genuinely looking for telling their story, and if a brand aligns, then they'll take it on. And it's always a good news story when an influencer actually decides to work with a brand for us, because it's actually more often than not the case.
Yeah. Because you're right. The media is inclined to portray influencers as young, socially aware and active, but just like group for hire to turn up to every event.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember reading articles that position them and seeing TV coverage that does just that.
Yep.
It almost diminishes the following and the relationships that they're leveraging.
Yeah, I completely agree. If they've been doing this long enough and they've been working with brands and marketers long enough, many of them have have matured.
Yeah.
Many of them have understood that this is not necessarily the case. But that's also a result of how still to this day, how many brand marketers think that they should pay for the services of an incredibly talented content creator who, there's influencers that I could talk about right now that work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. To maintain a YouTube channel, you need to be publishing 3 times a week, and that's a heck of a lot.
That's a lot of production.
That's so much production.
And maintain the quality or the interest around that.
Yeah, and I'll just flick you a box of lipsticks, and that pays for that time, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So, we've talked a bit about metrics, in the things like reach and frequency, and which are very media focused. But what are the types of metrics that marketers should be thinking about in measuring a influencer marketing activity?
Well, traditionally for influencer marketing, everybody does look at engagement or engagement rate. I don't think that should be the be-all and end-all. You shouldn't stop there. It is actually a really good indicator of great content, and so you know that you've reached the audience and hit the mark. Facebook and Instagram, for example, if they've got business accounts, we've got the ability to report on unique reach, and that should definitely be a key metric. We need to get rid of impressions. That should be irrelevant in this day and age. There's so many ways that exaggerates the effectiveness of the campaign. So definitely start with those key metrics. But just like any of your other marketing activity, we're doing a program at the moment where we're doing pre, mid, and post surveys about consideration. That's a great way to measure. Obviously, largely digital, so there's no reason why we can't have, the typical tracking URLs to online sales. If online sales is something that's trackable in your business, influencer marketing is as measurable as any other activity that you are doing in your marketing.
You just have to apply it to this as part of your strategy going in.
The truth is, what often happens still to this day, even though it is a big conversation point like you've mentioned, that it's a tacked on last minute activity, that's glamorous.
The afterthought.
People love working with influencers, so they never,
they're celebrities.
They don't necessarily need to measure it. It just feels good. It's highly measurable, and it goes back to, working with longer term partners and influencers on an ongoing basis. If you've got those partners and they're going to let they'll use all of your tracking devices, or they'll allow their audience to be surveyed. They'll obviously be gold and have the same objective as you do because they've gotten to know you so well. You can't do that with once off or 2 off too oft mentioned.
It's based on the relationship.
That's exactly right. And it does take a considerable more amount of work to do all that type of thing. And so that's why the ongoing partnerships are the best ones to start with, and dip your toe in the water and prove its effectiveness, and then, build on that.
Make a commitment.
Absolutely agree, yeah.
Natalie, really interesting. Thank you for making time and being here on the couch.
Absolutely, no problem at all.
And thank you for joining us on the couch. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and stay tuned for more On the Couch coming soon. Thank you.